Hello everybody, 0101 here, and I have another video for you. So right now we are on my little Realm server. I recently figured out that you could enable command blocks on a Realm server, so I've been playing around with those. And right now we are in a PvP arena, which my friend Beer's Good and I have been making. Beer's Good, that guy. So, let's just show you what I built so far. So, real quick, I've got nothing in my inventory. I'm wearing leather armor, and I have a command block over here just because it's there. So we're going to step on this pad, and it's going to teleport us here. As soon as we land here, it's going to spawn a zombie. So now, odds are, because we can't go anywhere else, we have to kill the zombie. Now, once we've entered this area, then what's going to happen is you're going to get locked in. You have all of these fences around here, you can't get out, and you certainly can't go off that way because it's lava. So, we have to kill the zombie. Now, because this is the first stage here, and because you may or may not have a weapon, I made it real easy. You can just sit him towards the edge and knock him off, and then he dies. So as you can see, the zombie is dead, and he dropped a wooden sword. Now, with this stage being complete, this is still locked because that's, how we got in here, but this becomes a gate, and so we're going to go to our next area. And you also heard that whenever you leave this area, it actually shuts off all of that stuff down there. Now this is going to teleport me back over to where I started. Alright. Now let's say that you enter this stage, and you already have a wooden sword. So we're going to go over here, it'll spawn another zombie dude, locks you in, you just go and kill the guy. Come on, dude. Okay, he's dead. So zombie's dead. And guess what? The magical power that got released from killing zombie upgraded my sword to an iron sword. That's pretty cool, right? Alright, but let's say that you go into this thing and you already have an iron sword. Well, killing one zombie probably isn't enough power to do anything, so let's see what happens. So, zombie died, but the magical power released from killing zombie wasn't enough to upgrade my weapon. Well, that sucks. But you've already got a good weapon, so it doesn't really matter. So now, I'm going to go through this and explain kind of how I got it all working. So I'm going to leave the area now. And you see that little redstone block that was right there? It just disappeared. Okay, so first thing that happens is you get 3 commands that activate right off the bat. So you got this guy here, pressure plate. It's sitting on a block, but directly under that block is a piece of redstone type thing. Right. So when this redstone here gets activated, it powers all 3 of those guys. And so the first one that happens is this one, which I've been trying to work it on because we want to put this in adventure mode. And we want to make it peaceful so we don't get, people going through and destroying everything. But it turns out that you can't actually change the difficulty for a single player. So this one is going to be replaced with something else. And you got this one. Now this is what starts the whole thing inside there. It's going to summon a redstone block at a very specific location, which will then activate a clock, which makes everything else work. And then the third command that gets hit is this one, and it changes that fence that's up there to a gate, which then allows you to enter the arena, or the stage, or whatever you would like to call it. Alright, so down here is kinda where all the magic happens. Alright, so this blue block here is where the redstone block is going to be summoned at. So it'll be right there in that little space, then it'll power this line here, it'll power this line here. So when it goes into this one here, you'll see that this little guy here is extended. When you send power through here, this one will shut off, this one will turn on, and then it'll this will retract real quick, and then it'll push right back, gives you a really quick pulse, and so that pulse then goes into this clock here, right? Now, in order to complete this clock, because right now, because this block is missing, it's not actually going to do anything. So the other thing that the redstone block powers is this piston thing here, right? So then it pushes this block over to here, completes this thing, sends a pulse through here, and you get your nice little clock going on. Alright, so now that's great and everything. So what else does it do? Well, first it has to determine if there's actually someone in the area. So that's what this one does. So it's testing for the @A means anybody, and then I set up these coordinates here. So this is the lowest numbered coordinate, so it's like one of the corners of the whole area here. Now this is also a lot lower than it needs to be, but that's because I had to debug it and I wanted to be inside looking at everything as I did it, so that's what that's there for. And then once you have your initial coordinate here, then you just expand that. Your x is going to be expanded by 8, your height is going to be expanded by 11, and then your other distance, your z, is going to be expanded by 8 again, and that encompasses a nice cubic area, so that way if you've got someone that's in that area, this will turn on. So that's what that is. So that's what the whole test for thing is. It turns this thing on, which then sends it through here and sends it through all that crap there. Alright, so then the first thing it does is it locks you in, right? So it takes that gate that was changed, right, and it changes it into a fence. So now you can't get out. And then the next thing, now this doesn't really need to be there, but it'll tell whoever is closest that someone has entered this stage. And then it'll go over here, and then it'll activate this guy too, and then this is actually your exit fence, so this is actually changing it from a gate to a fence again, which also does the same thing as locking you in. Alright, so then you've got this thing here, so it's this block here, this torch, these two repeaters, this block here, and then this torch here. Now what this is a negative edge detector, so you've got your input going into this block, you invert one side, put that onto this guy here, change it to 1 tick, your non-inverted side gets no ticks, well, 1 tick, whatever, the first tick, and it goes over here, and this is sort of like an AND block, so if this and this are on, then this thing turns off, or something like that, or when they both turn off, then this thing turns on. It's something like that. So this is a negative edge detector, so when you've got the person entering, it turns on, but you don't want it to do anything, right? You only want it to do something when the person exits. So negative edge detector does that. So when the person exits that area, so that when that little command block right there, the test for the person, turns off, then this thing will send a really short pulse through down onto here, which then goes onto these guys. So these ones these are actions that takes place when the player leaves the area or dies. So the first one is to get rid of that redstone block that changes everything, so this kind of effectively just shuts the whole thing down. And then it also sends you a nice little text to whoever may be in that area, which I might change later on, saying that the player has left the area. And so that is just a tell command to the nearest person within that cubic little thing that I made before. So whoever's in this, now this was the original coordinates, so this is if you're standing on top of the glass and for 2 blocks above that for, you know, jumping or anything like that, then you'll actually fulfill that, and then it'll send whatever it is to the person in that area. Okay, so that's that. So that just determines if the person has left or not. Okay, and the next one that we need to do is we need to see if a zombie's in there, right? So that's what this guy does. So this is going to test for command, any entity that is the type of a zombie within this cubic area, and then that's all it is. So if there's a zombie within that area, it'll send, the comparator will turn on. If there's not, it'll turn off. So then goes over to here and it says, hey, guess what, there's a zombie in here. Alright, so then we're going to go down here on this side. Alright, so then it's going to go through here, and it's going to go under here and then onto this block right here. Now this button right here, if you're wondering what that is, that just simulates a zombie entering and then dying. So you hit the button, the zombie enters. As soon as the button retracts and it goes back to normal, it simulates the zombie dying. Now this is another negative edge detector built slightly differently. Instead of the block being up at this level here, it's down on this level here, but it does effectively the same thing. So you've got, this is the block that gets the power, you invert one side, you increase the tick on the repeater for that side by 1, then the non-inverted side, you don't do anything to it, you have them both connected over here, you connect them to a torch. Now, if the zombie dies, and this one over here is not triggered because remember, as soon as the player leaves the area or dies, it turns everything off, right? So we're assuming that if the zombie dies, the player is still alive. So then it'll go through here and it'll activate this line here, which I don't really have that many things on there, so we probably don't need this and this. So then this right here will say, hey, guess what? The zombie is dead. And then it will also change that fence that's up in the corner for the exit to a gate, which allows you to leave. Alright, now here is the magic. This is the if-then-else statement type thing that this thing is going to be named after. So when the zombie dies, it sends a signal through over here. And then you get this thing right here. So what this is going to do is it's going to test for a person. Okay, so test for @p, the nearest person within these coordinates that has in their inventory an iron sword. So that's what the inventory, checking the inventory for an ID. The ID is Minecraft : iron sword. And then you get all that little curly brackets, square brackets, curly brackets, all kinds of shit. You just got to make sure that everything is closed in. Right, so what is going to happen then is this will go through here, and then the test for will go onto that block right there if someone is holding an iron sword. Now, if they are holding an iron sword, it's going to go through and activate these commands right here. So you've got this first one here saying, hey, guess what? The power released from killing the zombie was not enough. So that's just telling the person within that area that, well, this message. So pretty simple, right? Okay. Now, the most important thing, and the thing that actually makes a lot of this work, because I was having bugs with this before, is this thing, when it turns on, it'll stay on. And it will never turn off until it tests a negative, which is really ridiculous, and it kind of destroys the entire purpose of doing anything with command blocks. So I figured out a way around that too. And that's what this one does. This command right here is very, very long. I apologize for it. I will try to explain it as best as I can. So what this is going to do is it's going to set a block at this location. Now this location is where the original command block is that tests for the iron sword. We're going to replace this block with a command block. This right here, the 0, it's just keep it there. I think it just needs to be there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to replace the command. So now this command, if you noticed before, is the same thing as what's currently in that block. So, okay, now check this out. We've got a command here, and we got to put the command that's going to be replaced within quotes, right? So that's what that is. Now this is important, so pay attention. So we're running the original command here, so tells the person, or checks for a person within that area for an inventory, and then remember that we had this whole thing, the iron sword, in quotations as well. Well, the thing is that with the way the coding works is it'll take that first little quotation mark over here, right here for the command, right? So it'll think that everything within, after this quotation here to this quotation over here is what you want, right? So everything in here, this is what it's going to try to do. And then if you do it like that, it's going to throw up an error saying something something token, invalid token, something like that with an M, which is this letter here. So in order to fix that, in order to put quotes inside of quotes, you need to put this little / here. So that'd be this guy. You need to put that in there before these quotes that are inside the other quotes, and then it'll treat them as a separate set of quotes. So then once again, you put the / here between this set of quotes here, and then yeah, and that is the inside set of quotes, and then you end it with the outside set of quotes, and then that is how you replace a command block with, well, you replace a command block with a command already inside of it. Okay, so this thing will go through here, and the cool thing about it is it just replaces the command. It doesn't actually replace the block, so this redstone up here stays, which is really, really cool, because otherwise I would have had to rebuild this and made it a little bit different. Okay, so now here's the thing. This is when the if-then-else statement thing comes in, right? So if a player has an iron sword, it'll go through here and do all that stuff. However, if it does not, well, actually, hold on. Let me back up. Okay. We want to make sure that if it has this iron sword, it does not do anything else over here. So how do we do that? We send this comparator through onto this block here, and onto this redstone here. Now, the cool thing about this is this redstone, even though it's only powering one block, will still weakly power this area here, so if you put redstone there, it'll still light up. So then you take these two repeaters here, you have one set to the first tick, you have this one set to the third tick, and then this acts as a pulse extender. Now this is very important, otherwise, because I'll cover it later. Okay, anyways, so it sends an extended pulse back through here. You need to make sure that the timing is all right here, so you have two sets of repeaters here. The first one's set to 4, second one is set to 1. Now what we're going to do is, if you put one repeater into another repeater, it'll actually lock this repeater either on or off. Now we want to lock this repeater off so that way it doesn't send anything through, because this condition here, the first if statement, was fulfilled. So then the extended pulse here will go through here, send an extended pulse into this pulse, locking it off, preventing this pulse from going through. Now remember, this pulse is coming from the negative edge detector right here, so I believe this pulse is either 1 or 2 redstone ticks. So it goes down here, and then it stops it right here. Okay? So then that completes the if-then statement if the person has an iron sword. Now if they do not have an iron sword, let's say that they have a wooden sword, right? So this one goes through, tests for an iron sword, it does not find one, so it doesn't send anything through, which means that the pulse is then allowed to travel through here onto this next command block. Now this command block is the one that tests for a wooden sword, as said right there. So this is pretty much the same exact setup as the other one before it. So it tests for the nearest person within these coordinates for an inventory item called an iron sword. So if they have a wooden sword anywhere in their inventory, it will detect it and say, hey, they have a wooden sword. So then this is a test for, it goes positive, it goes into this block and into this redstone. I'm thinking you're seeing that something is familiar. That's because it's exactly the same setup as this one here. So if they have a wooden sword in their inventory, then it'll send this thing through, extend the pulse, send it through over here, lock this guy out, and it will not go on to this right here, which is the else statement. So if player has no weapon, and this is the end of the if statement. So they have a wooden sword, it will go through and activate these guys here. Now what this is going to do is it says, actually let's just take a look. Alright, so this one is the command block replacement. So setting block in this coordinate. Now this coordinate refers to the command block that has the check for wooden sword. And then we're replacing the command with the same command that was already in there, and this just effectively just turns it off. So instead of the comparator staying on, and being stupid, it's going to actually turn off. So that's sort of like a command block reset. So that's what that does. And then this one sends a message. So it sends a message to whoever is within these coordinates saying that the magical power released from the zombie upgraded your weapon. Pretty cool, right? But now you also actually need to upgrade the weapon, right? So in order to upgrade the weapon, basically you need to take the wooden sword and change it into an iron sword. Well, how do you do that? Well, first you got to get rid of the wooden sword. So what we're going to do is we're going to clear from a person nearest to these coordinates here anything in their inventory that looks like a wooden sword. So if they have 5 wooden swords, this will get rid of all of them. If they have 1, it'll get rid of it. If they don't have any swords, any wooden swords, it won't do a thing. Okay, so as you can see, it cleared the inventory of 0, 1 of 1, which is me, removing 1 item. Alright, so now that we have effectively made their wooden sword disappear, now we need to upgrade it, right? So we need to give them an iron sword. So that command is give the nearest person to these coordinates the item Minecraft iron sword. So this one gets rid of the wooden sword, it gives them an iron sword, which effectively upgrades the wooden sword to an iron sword. And that's how that works. Alright. Now, let's say that they don't have any swords. So it goes through here, they don't have an iron sword, this thing doesn't do anything. It goes through here, it checks for a wooden sword, they still don't have a wooden sword. This does nothing, so then it goes through here, and this is where it gives them a sword. So what we're going to do is, this is another give command. So gives the nearest person to these coordinates here the item a wooden sword. And then we also need to tell them, hey, guess what? The zombie dropped a wooden sword. So this is another tell command to the nearest person within these coordinates that the zombies dropped a wooden sword. So this is effectively an if-then-else statement. So if it does this, well, if this condition is true, it'll do that and prevent anything else from happening. If this is not true, so this is actually two if statements embedded into each other, then it'll run this if statement if they have a wooden sword. If they do not have a wooden sword, it goes into the else statement, which is then giving them a wooden sword. So to think of it in a coding sort of way, if the person has a wooden or an iron sword, then it goes through here, else, which means they do not have it, the condition has failed, else we're going to run this if statement, checks for a wooden sword. If they have a wooden sword, then we go through and do those things. If they do not, or the else, then it'll go through here and run this. So that is your if then else statement. It's pretty cool. I was impressed when I figured it out, because it's like I put everything together and I'm thinking about it, and it's like, wait a minute, I've just made an if then statement. How cool is that? Alright, so that is how all of this works. So we go over here, this is stage complete. We go over here, that's just for debugging, you don't even have to worry about that one. Checks for an iron sword, checks for a wooden sword. If it doesn't have anything, run these. If a player leaves, run these. And then this one summons the zombie. This is your whole little clock pulse thing. And there we go. So that is one stage complete. There we go. It's pretty awesome. And I left this as glass just so you can see all the crap down there. I thought that was kind of cool. So this little teleporting pad over here is actually going to go to another stage, which will then teleport to another stage. Each stage being progressively harder and progressively larger, which should give me more room to actually play around with all this redstone and command blocks and stuff. So there you go. That is our PvP arena with Beer's Good and 0, 1 of 1. Oh, except I spelled my own name wrong. Check that out. 0, 1 of 1 with an X. There you go. This is our PvP arena. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you will be able to now use if-then statements using command blocks. Have a great day.